Welcome, Virgo, to your in-depth forecast for week commencing the 16th of February for the ascendant, the sun, or the moon. Going to share with you the big themes of the week, which is very powerful to begin with. On the screen are all the planets at the start of the week, which provide a lot of context. I'll share those. Then go through the unfolding events in detail, frame by frame, to give you a clear picture of what to expect this week. We're going to see a solar eclipse on Tuesday for the first time in the functional sixth house for you and the sign of progression, but also of continuity, Aquarius. And that's squaring to the modern ruler of that sign, Uranus. That's on Tuesday. And that creates the potential for tension over the next 6 months. But because the eclipse occurs so late in the sign of Aquarius, the sun moves on Wednesday into your opposite sign. Now, your opposite sign at the moment is very strong. It has Venus, which rules the seventh house, the North Node, very much to do with karma, direction of travel, but Mercury, your ruler too. So the sun joins them on Wednesday. So that's exciting. But we have later in the week an exact conjunction between Saturn and Neptune, where two planets are unified for the first time in 37 years. But for you, they occur, or this occurs in the eighth house. The eighth house can be profoundly psychological, it can be where things evolve, but it also can be in a more practical way, shared finances or long term financial moves. So, quite contrasting energies are at the heart of this week. So, on the screen, your event chart. As ever, we need to be mindful of the planet which is most northerly, in your case, Uranus, which can be very restless, and also the planet which rules the sign, in your case, Mercury. So Mercury is asking you, or continuing to ask you, to work on your listening skills. And the sun moving on Wednesday into Pisces will help that. It brings a real opportunity to celebrate the things we have in common. And with Venus and the North Node so close together, if there is someone you're attracted to, it could be a very, very positive period. However, we do have the moon in between the transformational Pluto and the more assertive Mars as we go into the week. And that could make you feel a little bit tense, maybe a desire to actually be super efficient as you come into the week. And you often have an appreciation of organization, but somehow or another, something could call out to you that you almost feel compelled that you have to tidy up or sort out or think about. But later on, as the moon combines with Mars, it could make you feel a bit irritable if anything is not quite in its place or someone has a personal way about them that just can seem a little more aggravating. But on Tuesday, the moon moves forward and connects to the sun. So essentially, a new moon, or in this case, a solar eclipse, is a moon cazimi. So the energy of the sun radiates into the beauty and magic of the moon. But the moon in the sixth house has a real flavor or echo of your sign. It appreciates order, it appreciates things being well structured. And if your life is like that at the moment, you may be thinking, well, how will this solar eclipse work out for me? But it's possible the things you need to work on are not the things you're doing well. It's the things that maybe you need to become more conscious of. And that's where Uranus being in the ninth house, which can be knowledge, but it can also be a need for personal freedom. And if you feel trapped in a job, for example, or some life patterns that are rather repetitive and aren't really feeding your passion, what Uranus can ask you to do in that square with the solar eclipse is really think about a radical change. Uranus likes anything that's more challenging, it finds it very stimulating. So just be conscious of that. But you can lean into your relationships from Wednesday because the chances are the good relationships you have can get closer over the next 4 weeks. Of course, there may be a relationship which isn't working quite so well. And if that's the case, particularly if it's with a colleague or someone you share accommodation with, it may be because they're, as you see it, not being as conscientious and as committed as you are. And that's something that you may want to address. But diplomacy can really help your cause because the sun moving across the seventh house activates uh, the need or the potential to use your words carefully in order to create greater collaboration and cooperation. But you do have Mercury, your ruler, forging a brilliant link with Jupiter this week. And if there's someone you get on well with, it may be through a shared interest, it could be through a hobby, it may be uh, in a wider friendship group. There is a sense that things can get stronger through this week because of Mercury's great link with Jupiter. Jupiter is the traditional ruler of Pisces, so we have a mutual receptivity. Mercury itself is not that strong in this sign, can be a bit blurry, but your passion for clarity can help that link with Jupiter. So something around your future or a relationship can be very reaffirming. But by the end of the week, as Saturn and Neptune come into that exact conjunction, you may find yourself thinking increasingly, particularly over the next 2 years, about um, deeper things, the cycle of life. The eighth house represents those. Now, of course, Saturn can create challenges. If you're someone who tends to live for the moment as far as finance is concerned, Saturn in the eighth house could make you more mindful of planning for the future, things like pensions. If you're in a close relationship, making provisions, writing out a will, for example, or making sure that there are deeds that are in place that protect you and your loved ones. But if you are more entrepreneurial and there's part of you that does want to change your work, you're finding what you're doing at the moment too repetitive and formulaic. Saturn's just saying, don't be too cavalier in your approach to any ideas you've got, because you could find that talking to someone this week fills you with a lot of enthusiasm and encouragement. And maybe by working in partnership, that could be something very attractive. But do drill down into the details, be very clear about who does and contributes what. Neptune can still create a degree of disorientation and make things somewhat opaque. So, getting professional advice over long term savings, pensions, investments, and so on would be a smart thing to do. But if you are someone who's not enjoying a relationship very much, the eighth house can be that part of the cycle of our lives when we may need to let something go. And Saturn can make us very aware of what's not working quite so well. And that may be something that you need to grapple with. But equally, because I feel Pluto particularly is so powerful for you, pushing you to think, along with Uranus, about change around your routines. And it may be that one of the things you're worried about is earnings. And Saturn in the eighth house says you're right. Not to be too rash, don't do things quickly, consider what the implications would be. So that's something that I would really agree with you on. But equally, Saturn in the eighth house, if you're involved with someone where it's going well, could be something that locks the relationship in for the longer term in a very profound and stable way. So Saturn can work in lots of different ways in that part of your situation. But if you are thinking about long-term finance, it is important to get the facts. Saturn, be realistic. Saturn, but also with Neptune in the mix, know that what you read for the first time may not be how you read that information the second time, because it can be rather uh, rather beguiling, but also at times create a degree of confusion or uncertainty. Now, to really get the inside track on the second half of this month, please click on your monthly video that you can see on the screen, because there's an incredibly powerful square between Mars and Uranus the last week, but also a very brilliant opportunity between Venus and Jupiter as the month comes to a close. And if you have got a relationship situation evolving, that can be very important to understand too. And also, if you'd like to take advantage of my offers on my printed charts, you can get your personal forecast full 12 months from the time of order, plus your life roadmap, and apply Astro 26 at the checkout and get 50% off. If you're interested in soul or karmic astrology, you can order your draconic forecast and chart and get 50% off by adding Draco 26 at the checkout. Take care, all the best, and goodbye.